Hey there, folks, and welcome to another episode of Crit Hit Interviews. I'm Arlyeon, and we're here today with Matt Trobiani. Did I say that right?
You did.
Ha! Of Team Fractal Alligator, who is notably the developer of Hacknet, one of the more accurate hacking sims I would say is currently out there.
Yeah, thanks for having me on.
I'm quite grateful that you took us up on that invitation. So, to kick this interview off, we try to ask the dev themselves just a number of questions, sort of get to know you better, the person behind the games we love. So,
yeah, sounds great.
Gonna give you an easy one here, which is just what is your all-time favorite game, if you have one, and what have you been recently playing?
I feel like people think that's a really easy question, but like all-time favorite game is like pretty contentious. I'm gonna have to give it to Dark Souls because I just love the hell out of that game. It used to be Portal though as all-time favorite because I also love the hell out of that game. But recently, I think as my tastes have changed a bit over time, I'm getting like more and more away from puzzle games. And I'm more and more appreciating just how good Dark Souls is at what it does. So since Dark Souls Remastered came out, I wish I could answer that with saying I've also just been playing Dark Souls, but I haven't actually gotten around to that yet. So I've been getting through a bunch of Celeste. And yeah, it's pretty good. And playing a whole lot of PUBG as always.
I never actually really got into PUBG. It's not to my taste. I love Souls-likes. I actually really do dig puzzle games, but also like clever narrative games. And I feel like Portal was very good for its sort of combination of being really funny and tongue-in-cheek, but having tense moments and yeah.
I think Portal's very special in the puzzle game genre because it doesn't lean too heavily on its puzzles to make the game experience good. You could like remove all of the puzzles from that and make that same like foundation into like an action game, and it would still be like really compelling. I think that they did a really interesting job of making it so that the puzzles and everything all served the same like feeling and exploration of these really fun mechanics. And I feel like a lot of puzzle games, especially the ones that I really don't like, lean too heavily on like the puzzles themselves, where the mechanics are like pretty uninteresting, and I just can't get into that sort of game.
Yeah, my childhood was a lot of puzzle games, of which you'd be sitting there on one puzzle for like 6 hours, and they'd sometimes be the most ridiculous or obtuse solutions, or pixel hunting.
Yeah, I just can't do it anymore.
Yeah, same.
Back to Dark Souls. Yeah.
I mean, there's some puzzle games I can still do, but they're the ones that have leaned a bit more towards accessibility and being aware that not everyone wants to spend their time, like, hunting for a pixel. So they'll at least be nice enough to, like, let you know that you can interact with something.
Yeah. Actually, I'm going to go a little bit off script here. I want to get your opinion on this. So, I was talking to Ari from Team Cherry, the developers of Hollow Knight, which is a game that I like, absolutely love. And we were having this discussion about like, the state of indie games, and we were talking about sort of this problem where a lot of games are trying really hard to be quirky, or like they need something to like really strongly differentiate themselves from the crowd, because they have like no faith in their ability to execute something really simple. And I think like what I really want, what a lot of like players really want, is something that's simple, that's just really good, and really like I wish the developers put more of their creativity into like having a really like compelling and interesting world design instead of like having it be like too quirky. Like I think every time someone talks to me about their game, they're like, it's a platformer, but as soon as they say but and they're about to tell me what their quirk is, I'm automatically like checked out. Like, because I know what they've done, which is like they've tried to make it too, like, they haven't just felt good just making it, it's just a really good platformer.
It's a platformer, but I made it as the spiritual successor to Fez, crossed with a shooter sometimes. Nope.
Yeah, or like I don't know. So I used to be in the same thing. I made a platform a long time ago that I thought was going to be like the next big thing, and I was the greatest game designer ever. And it was like a platform that like every time you die, you're like your body's still there, and like your previous lives will play out as well, and you can use them as like platforms and stuff. And it was like it was cool, but it was like it wasn't good. And what was like quirky about it was distracting me from making something that was just good, if that makes sense. Like, what do you reckon about that?
First off, the example you gave actually makes me think of a couple games I've used that your deaths persist, and some of them have followed that by either rewarding players who manage to get by without using that quirk through achievements. But I mean, it goes both ways because it allows an accessibility to players who just aren't that good at platforming. So it's not necessarily the worst idea, though I can get how it'd be also distracting, because if you retry a level again and again, you're going to like clutter it with all these quantum versions of yourselves dying in really inconvenient ways all over the place.
Yeah, but I think like just what you're discussing here is that like it's easy as like game designers to get caught up thinking about the possibilities that like a new mechanic set gives us, and not focus on what really matters. Like, to make that game that I just described really good, like, you should probably actually just like straight up remove the whole death persisting thing, like, and just make a really good platformer. And then like later on, if it feels like the game needs some richness from something, you can think about adding in like that sort of thing. Like, I think Celeste does this really well, where it's like it just made a really good platformer first, and there are just like bits and pieces of weird other stuff like sprinkled in that like enhance levels and give the levels like flavor. It's like
every individual level has its specific flavor, and it's not just like one specific obstacle for those things. It has its own dynamic feel. You have like the wind puzzles and the cloud things and everything in the one stage, which was a nightmare. On the B side, oh my god.
I haven't done the B-sides yet. I'm working my way up to it.
Oh, it's the Dark Souls, the platforming, you know.
I fucking right in there.
But I mean, like, I actually died more in Celeste than I did in like 260 odd hours in like Dark Souls, and Salt and Sanctuary tossed you like, you're gonna die. And I honestly enjoyed it though. Like, the B-sides, getting them done was one of those like amazing feelings of triumph followed by exhaustion, because it's just, they're solid, they're great, they logically make sense. That doesn't stop it from being incredibly frustrating sometimes, especially with some of the lengthier rooms. Like I saw gifs, however you say that fucking word, of like,
I'm not getting into that debate on the podcast.
Of the seasides, and I was just like, nope. I can't even. I actually couldn't even do all the B-sides normally. Like, it was just not happening. I could get through the core of the B-side, but like the temple I wasn't doing, and there's so many that were just like evil. Or like just a single room that was like, oh yeah, I'm gonna rack up like, of your 200 kills in this level, 150 of them are going to be on this single room. Yeah.
Dark and Celeste is great because it's like very clearly not a puzzle game, and it's like there aren't really puzzles in it. It's just a good platformer, and they're not messing about. And I think that's what like makes it really great.
There is a puzzle aspect to it, because it uses logic, and if you're trying to like bypass some obstacles, because you can actually bypass obstacles sometimes, it does get a bit puzzly. You're like, okay, so how do I launch myself here, because I don't want to deal with this. The speedrunning thing definitely hits more closer to puzzle, because it's a lot of skill mastery and platforming, but there is this sort of a logic set that goes into puzzle games. It's just more fast-paced than the more annoying, I guess, adventure game style of puzzle. Yeah. And
I don't know, I like it. I think it's good. It's
it's a phenomenal game. There's I mean, I haven't interviewed the devs because I couldn't get a hold of them. Sadness. But I do actually have a podcast with it as a subject matter coming out soon, where me and someone else sort of picked over the mechanics and some of its the themes. And actually, on the note of games and their identities, like another game that I'm very, very enthusiastic about that's part of like the current generation is Iconoclasts.
Yeah, yeah. I was following that for a long time. Met the dev at Boston, I think, one of the packs.
God damn it!
Yeah.
I need to like go to cons eventually when I'm not like a gremlin living out of a barrel, I guess. But like it has, I would say, one of the most solid narratives that I can think of in a Metroidvania for plot, pacing, for like characterization, for the fact that it avoids a lot of obvious tropes, and it doesn't just like it outright gives the middle fingers to a lot of like expected plot arcs. You don't go through quite the same motions that you'd expect from a sort of adventure gamey Metroidvania thing. It actually has some really intense and deep themes that it covers, and some things that are like outright creepy and like just unpleasant that occur.
Yeah, that's cool.
And so because the game has its quirks, sure, but at its core, you could remove the quirks, and on its own, its story is one of the more compelling ones that I've come across in like a game of its genre in the indie scene recently. And so like you definitely do have a point of having a solid foundation is definitely something that's important.
Yeah, I guess I'm gonna sound so preachy doing this. I'm just gonna say it anyway. I think like developers focus too much on like at the moment like building their quirks into the game, and I'm like actually just like all you need is a really good foundation, I think. And yeah, like I think it's even more than saying a foundation's really important. It's like a really good foundation's like maybe everything, and you can put your little quirks on top of it when they're necessary, not before.
Yeah, like if I had to name like another really good Metroidvania, and I will consistently list these two off, Salt and Sanctuary, because it's also unworthy now that I've actually dived into it. Really fucking good, because they're like, you know, the Metroidvania Souls-like twins, and they're a load of fun.
Yeah.
Valda's Story, which not as many people know of, but it is
I didn't know it.
A Metroidvania that has closer to the sort of stylish fighting that you would expect in something like a DMC game, but in a 2D sense. So it has like this RPG element with Metroidvania roots and like a very nice combat focus, and it's just a load of fun. And it has its little nuances in that there's different characters that all actually play very differently. And it's actually really satisfying to go through, because they actually managed to make all the characters feel very distinct in how they'll approach fights, in the armaments that they have available. It wasn't half-assed. It wasn't just, hey, we're going to give you access to like this little quirk and build the game around it, or we'll give you extra characters, but they're just paint jobs of existing ones.
Yeah, that sounds really good.
Oh yeah, I can totally give you a link to it later.
Yeah, that'd be great. What was that name again?
Valda's Story. Like, you're already familiar with Unworthy, I take it. Maybe?
Wait, sorry.
Okay, are you familiar with Unworthy as well as Valda's Story? I like listed.
No.
Okay, I will link you to that. Do you at least know Salt and Sanctuary, right?
Yeah, of course.
Okay,
Yeah.
okay. I mean, okay. I'll link you to those two after this.
Yeah, awesome. Thanks.
So I guess we'll go back on... although, again, if you have any tangents you want to get on, go for it. Love this. our editor will probably be like, God damn it, guys, stop talking about tangents, and we'll just be like, okay, just edit like the part where we're just talking about format. That's
Yeah.
that's on you, buddy. Sorry.
Yeah. Thanks for your hard work, editor. Leave that in.
But so what got you into game development, and like, was it something you always wanted to do?
I think it came in like phases. And so I first got into it when I got, I think, StarCraft on my laptop way back when that first released, the original StarCraft. And after I finished that, I discovered the online mode and playing all of the weird custom maps, and I decided I wanted to make my own because I thought it would be cool and neat. So I did that, and when Warcraft 3 came out, I got really into making custom maps for that. And I made a couple that like ended up getting
Dota.
Pretty popular. Not Dota, but
No,
like,
I'm just, it's the Warcraft 3 had like that, all the like RPG maps that showed up, and people making like full things of like Diablo in their map editor, and it was just crazy neat.
I think it was actually like one of the like low-key golden eras of game design. There was so much amazing stuff, and like it was like a platform where there were so many players, and the way you could like play an online game meant that you could make an entirely new game and play like an online game of this weird thing you created with friends, and like the netcode was first class because it was like Blizzard, and it all just worked, and like there were so many different games within it, and trying to recreate that in like this modern world doesn't really work. Like even if I can make much better games now, I can't build that like volume of players that are just going through there trying weird new stuff. Like you could play online maps of that and play like different games all night, and there'd always be like full lobbies. And it was amazing, and I actually think that was like brilliant, and I'm kind of sad that Dota 2 hasn't redone that with their own engine, because I think that would be like an incredible thing. Anyway, the amazing thing about it was that like even if your game was crap, it would always be fun because it's always online with a bunch of other people, right? Like, and just playing with other people is fun. So you'd just be playing a lot of these other like stupid little games. And they were all great. So I think my favorite one ever was called Don't Press the Button. And there's just like a button in the middle of the screen, and you just have to not press it. And you're in a lobby with 12 other people, and if you press the button, it'll like just crash your computer. Like someone found a bug in the engine that they could like make crash a computer, so they just put it on this button. And like if you're the last person in the lobby, you win automatically. So the entire game is this weird psychological like Russian roulette, where you're trying to convince people in chat to press the button without pressing it yourself. And if you play it enough times and you win, you don't know what the button does, so you kind of really want to press it next time. And it's like the dumbest game, but it was so great because it was like this weird little like chat room sort of battle where like you like invent little games to yourself where the penalty is always pressing the button. And it was this weird environment where you could actually make that game and like consistently get a full lobby of it, like always up, like every night. And like there's no way you could release that on Steam and have it have an active online community with like a discussion of the metagame around it. Like anyway, I loved that era, so I was making maps and stuff for that and just weird stuff. And I'm really sad that there's nothing like that out there nowadays. I thought it was like brilliant. There's so much really weird, cool creativity that really used the online stuff so well. Anyway, so I was developing that, and then once I got into, so I've always been a programmer. Once I got into university, I didn't really believe that going into game development was like a thing that I could do. There weren't any game dev schools or anything out there, and there aren't any like big studios or anything in Adelaide, which is where I'm from. And so I was like, okay, I'm just gonna go be a programmer, and I looked online for a list of like the best places in the world to work, and at the time Google was the top of the list. So I was like, okay, I'm gonna start there, and then if I don't like it, then I'll just work my way down that list. It seems like a valid life strategy. So I became a programmer, which I was gonna do anyway because I really love code. But midway through that degree, some friends at uni started a game development club, and I started like writing little games with that. And then over time, I started just taking it a bit more seriously because that was just all I wanted to be doing. And eventually I got serious enough to release a game on Steam that I'd made with some friends. And the game, turns out, was not very good, but that's fine. Like, it was a big experience going through that process. And then after that, I worked on my next one, which was Hacknet, which I abandoned and then came back to. And then by the end of that, I was already, by the time Hacknet was ready to release, I was out of uni for a while and was just working in a job doing defense code. And I was really serious about just making it the best game it could be, and tried to give it a good shot with the marketing because I'd spent so much time on it. I didn't, all the way up to release day, I didn't really believe that it could be a career, but it turns out it can, and it I was lucky enough that Hacknet to do well enough to support me to do indie dev full time from then on.
So
that's
actually,
pretty much it.
Branching off that question, you've mentioned you've worked with a number of friends, and so how did you meet your team for both your initial game, and how did it change over the course of Hacknet's development? Did any of the people who worked on the initial game carry over with you to Hacknet's development?
Yeah, so first of all, no, I worked on Hacknet almost entirely alone. Well, sort of. So I met, for the first time I went to the game development club. There were just a bunch of people there just checking it out, and we formed into loose groups to do a game jam. And I just met some people there, and one was an artist, and we needed an artist, or we figured we didn't really know what we needed. So we just made some friends at the event. By we, I mean me and a friend of mine named Jamie, who was a good friend of mine from the programming courses at uni. So we went there together, and we were okay, we'll make something together. And we'll meet some other people at this event to join the team, and we just did. And then that small team was responsible for making a bunch of little games, and then we'd work on our own things, but we'd all test stuff together. And then I made the first game that I released on Steam with one of them, and started working on Hacknet kind of on my own. Although they helped test it and revise it. I think some of the icons are from that original artist as well. Yeah. So it was a bit loose with that sort of thing, but yeah.
Okay, so what sort of skills has game development required you to put to use? And for the most part, I'm going to guess you picked up a lot of these during the course of your modding for the original Mac making, but also for uni. But was there any other sources you found instrumental for just developing and picking up skills?
So are you talking about programming skills or game design skills here?
Both, because they're sort of interrelated. Yeah, I mean, making a good game requires a certain design theory behind it, but also broken code makes for terrible games.
Yeah, so I've gotten a lot better at software architecture, I think is probably the right term for it, over time. The Hacknet architecture is kind of all over the place because I developed it over such a long time when I was changing a lot as a programmer. So there were a whole bunch of different coding ideals sort of shoved in there in a really clunky way. And I had no rewrites policy.
So is this where you look back at the file and you're going to see a note to yourself from a couple years ago where you're I had a reason I put this here, but fuck if I know what that reason was?
Yeah, there's actually a folder in the code base that's just called magic, and that's where I do all of my dark magic spells to get stuff that shouldn't work to work.
That's
so
beautiful.
That whole folder is gross and terrible. There's a lot of really awful stuff in there. But I don't know. I kind of love the Hacknet code base, even if it is super janky.
I just love that you marked it down as magic. That's as that's as bad as me just naming the one set, because I used to code a long time ago, and I had a part of this day-night weather system that influenced combat encounters in an RPG Maker thing. I just had it marked as junk heap because it was just numbers all the way down. And like it started easy, but I was like, wait, I want to have things like trigger and untrigger at certain times, and oh wait, and every time I added a town or anything because I wanted them all to be influenced by like day-night weather, it just added more.
Yeah, there's some pretty janky code in Hacknet. There's a great file called OS, like os.cs, which is just like the like basically like the kernel of the operating system and the network kernel just shoved into one file. And it's just massive and sprawling and weird.
Oof.
And it's pretty good. Yeah, so I was like I learned programming at uni, like formal programming, but honestly by like like end of year 2 at uni, I was like coding a lot in my like spare time. Actually, so I think that if you're a programmer and you graduate uni never having coded like anything that's not an assignment, and you're like asking for like a job, just get out of my office. Like I don't want to talk to you. Like I think the way you really learn to be a good developer is by developing your own stuff and like your own bigger stuff that you care about. And then, because like then you can run into the problems of like understanding why things don't work. You know, I went through most of my uni life not knowing why an interface in like programming was valuable, because like it's hard to teach that unless you run into certain problems. And the way it's taught, it's like, well, why don't I just code it all out linearly? Because like the size of their assignments can't, and like the groups can't really express to you how valuable it is to like break stuff up into little components to be able to test it, because like you need that. And it took me years to come around to like test-driven development, which I do a lot now. Like, and like it really is worth it, because making like really good software when you have really, really complex problems to solve is like actually really hard, but it can be simple as long as you're like really disciplined. Anyway, a lot of this stuff, like it just took a long time to do. And like, I think that being at uni was a great environment for me teaching myself. And I did learn a lot there, but the best stuff that I got out was just from the personal projects that I worked on at that time.
All right. So, along the way, you acquired yourself a publisher. So how did that come to be?
Right, so I got like an awkward answer for this, but I feel like if you're looking for a publisher, just win a bunch of really fancy awards for your game, and then they'll just come find you. I actually met my publisher after like winning an award at an Australian Game Developer Award for Hacknet. They just like talked to me about it afterwards. It was like, hey, we'll see your game because apparently it's award winning. And anyway, that's how you do it. Just win some awards. I think I actually did send a bunch of emails out to other publishers, and got like a couple of replies back that were like no's, and I was checking the waters because I was already had like a churn with Surprise Stack. I was like, I just want to see what else is out there and do my proper research. And I got a really hilarious one from Tiny Build on launch day of Hacknet, where they saw how well it was doing, and they were like, "Oh, sorry, we must have missed this email. It'd be great to work with you again in the future." I'm like, I don't think you actually just saw that email today. But, yeah, I actually talked to the guy who sent that at one of the PAXs when I saw their booth, and I was at like a party with them, and like they're actually lovely. I'm not even talk trash. They're all like publishers of people too. They're not like big corporations. They're usually just like a handful of people. They really struggle to find games that they think are going to do well and games that they think they can help do well. And they were totally right. Like Hacknet was not a good fit for Tiny Build. But yeah, it was just really funny to see. Yeah, so I talked to Surprise Stack like with the game, and I'd say like a lot of people think that getting a publisher is just like an objective good thing, and I think it's actually not always. Like you have to be very clear what you're selling and what you're buying with that, because you are giving away like a big percentage of your game, and they might not do that much for it. So you got to be careful with what you're getting with publishers. But I actually really needed one, so I kind of like was like, okay, I need a publisher. I just needed, because I was working on my own then. I was like, I just need more people on this launch. So I decided to go with them, and yeah, I got that intro by winning an award. But I think if I was going to give advice to other people about how to find a publisher, like you'll be fine as long as your game is astoundingly good, and which is like really not helpful advice, I know, but I'd say like also realize that they're not going to do all your marketing for you. You're going to have to do the marketing for your game, probably, at least with like Surprise Stack. They'll help, and they have experts there to help, but like the developers are the ones who know the inherent sellability of it, probably more than anyone else, especially in weird cases like Hacknet. So I think make sure that you've thought about how you're going to sell the game and sell it to them first.
So, sort of winding down from, I guess, some of the more serious questions here is, do you have any hobbies that just help you unwind from, like, game dev-related stress?
This is, like, a really awesome question, and, yeah, I do. So, I got 3. So, I collect and build very fancy mechanical keyboards. Right now in front of me, I have a CM Nova Touch that I've replaced basically every component with. So it's like the switches have been smoothed and hypersphere silenced. The case
My fiance would love you. Hey, Lovi. His hobby is building custom mechanical keyboards. Oh! Yeah. Yeah, and he's going over the specs. You can listen to this episode later and just drool at, like, apparently the awesomeness that continue.
All right, that's good to hear that there are other people out there. It's a great subreddit for it. The case is a solid milled block of aluminium, hard anodized to warm gray, made by Ryan Milbauer. He's like a extremely talented like designer of these sort of things. The caps that I currently have on it are GMK Plum from Germany. And I've got like a huge, like, okay, so the first thing that I built when I moved into my new apartment was like this big IKEA cabinet with like different tiers. There was just essentially a big display case for all of my keyboards. So I have a lot now and I love them and it's great.
How many do you have now?
Keyboards. Oh, hold on, let me check. Right, so 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and 2 more at the office. So like 11.
And then I just have 1.
A couple of them are duplicates. I have like a couple that I got from LG, who gave me a couple of their Roma G boards. And I have one of those just to do like the lighting and code effects stuff on. A couple of them are like experimental ones. I've got a restored Apple Extended 2 keyboard from like way back when, which I don't actually use that much, but it's very neat. It's like an old thing. I got a couple of other little ones, including my 3 that I bring to conventions. So I have like really bright, clicky ones to bring to conventions, so that when I like am demoing Hacknet, people have like a really like a cool keyboard to like to type on.
And it has really that nice sound to sort of accompany it for that Hollywood hacking moment of like the super loud keyboard clicking.
And they've got like super bright or like weird keycaps, and like I think that like really adds to the whole thing. So yeah, I've got my convention boards, and I've got like a couple that I rotate out as my like personal boards, and then a couple of work boards that are like silenced. Anyway, so I love my keyboards. It's like it's a thing. I've got a couple more on the way. Well, like more pieces, so I can tag out pieces for different bits. But yeah, if anyone's really into keyboards and is listening, I love my Topre, and you're never going to convince me that they're not true mechanical switches, because they're the best. It's hotly debated if Topre is good or not. They're like a special switch from Japan.
Huh.
That are electrostatic capacitive. They're not like true mechanical switches like the Cherry ones. But they are awesome, and I love them forever. And you're gonna stop hating on Topre.
You said you had 2 more hobbies?
Yeah. So I also am really into making very fancy cocktails. I have like a big like collection of like weird and obscure spirits and like fancy Japanese shakers and stuff. Yeah, and like after like a long day, I'll just like pick something out to make, and I'll like if you're just making one, it's kind of like an obnoxiously long process to just get everything ready, with all your little garnishes and things just to make one drink for yourself. But I find that process really relaxing and nice, so I do that as well, which I really enjoy. And it's good like to have friends over and you can like it's something to do while you're talking, just like make some fancy drinks. So I really like that as well.
Impress people.
Yeah, well, I don't know. It's like a nice thing to do. I really like it. It's not so much about impressing people, but yeah, it's fun.
I mean,
and
it
I'm
sounds
also
neat.
Sorry. Go on.
It sounds neat. The most I can do is make curries.
Yeah,
I cannot make fancy drinks.
Yeah, that's pretty good. I'm also a black belt of Kimbushiro. But I've let that slip a fair bit lately. So I started training a lot less after the Hacknet stress got built up a lot, and I'll just like stay in shape enough. But I'm hoping to get back to that soonish. But yeah, I have a bunch of hobbies. I do other stuff. I cook a lot as well.
High five, fellow stress cooker. Yeah.
Oh yeah.
So, I guess now is about the time where we should actually ask you about Hacknet. So, diving right in there, what was the inspiration for making Hacknet?
I was really chasing after like a very specific feeling, not like a game that already existed. The biggest inspiration, of course, was Uplink, which is a game I absolutely love. And I did want to kind of modernize it, and I also wanted it, like, when I was playing it, I was like, oh, I wish I could, like, type on the terminal, make me feel like such a hacker, it'd be great. So those were, like, that was, like, part of it. It was, like, the game side inspiration. But I also really liked the feeling when I was at uni of finding out how new systems worked. Especially systems that we weren't supposed to tinker with. So there was like an auto marking system for our assignments, and it was so fun just like submitting files to it, because it'd have to compile your code and then run it and then test it against its own results and give you like your marks back. It was really fun like testing the limits of the system, like working out how it worked by submitting different like programs to it and like trying to like chip away at it to see if I could like break it. Not because I wanted to cheat, but because like finding out about the system and like pushing its limits and testing it was so like, it was fascinating.
And you
so
probably
exciting.
get extra bonus grades for pointing out if there's some sort of exploiter loophole in there.
Yeah, and it was like, it's so fun. And tinkering around with those systems, it was the best. And you'd feel so clever and so like shady, and it was like, it was just exciting.
That makes me think of high school where we found out that we could actually upload stuff onto like the public school computer, like its proper network. So everyone uploaded the version of Doom that had multiplayer onto this network, so it was now accessible from every single computer. So just one day everyone was suddenly able to play Doom. It was just there on all the computers, and like such a great feeling of like, well, of having managed to do something we were clearly not supposed to, because they installed a lot more security for that later.
Yeah, like poking around in those systems where you're not meant to be there, and like you're understanding like what the security is and how it's like, it just is this facade of, something being like, it's just a big sign that says don't go in here, but you can if you just like pretend it's not there, or you think about it the right way. And like there was this mood behind it, and like the mood in the computer labs where like down in university, because we were in this kind of weird basement level where like if other people were working on the assignment and you were talking to someone about how you were like fiddling with the printing system, see if you can like get around having to pay for printing because you were out of credit, and you're like, I'll just spend an hour doing this and see what I can get. It was like, and then everyone would either crowd around and then like do their own little things on their other computer, try and look into the system as well. And it was exciting, and it was just like this amazing feeling that like it was pretty cheeky, but so I was chasing after when I was making Hacknet, I wanted to recreate that feeling, and like the feeling I got from Uplink, which is like it was kind of close to that, but it was a little bit different because you were a little bit separated from it, and I wanted to bring that feeling of Uplink a bit closer to the chest, a little bit, make it feel a little bit more personal, a little bit more real. So it was more chasing after like a feeling than a specific game design, and I was just putting stuff together that I thought would be like the necessary components to build a feeling out of it. And it turned out that like once the components were in there, like the feeling just almost built itself. And then like making the game around it that pushed that up and supported it in the best possible way was like the really long, hard process afterwards. But you can see just from the 48-hour game jam where I first prototyped it, you can see like the real beating heart of Hacknet is already there, like right from the start. And it looks like I already knew exactly what I was going to make from the very start, just because of how quickly everything came together and like how deliberate all the placement was. Like the terminal, I just wrote it in and I like wrote the rendering code to put it up exactly where it is now, like in the final game. Just because I was like, it should be here and this feels right, and it was right. So it was a really weird process to build, but it was really chasing after like the feeling and sensation of it, where everything felt like this is where it should be and this is how it should look and this is how I want to feel. And that's basically where like the heart of Hacknet came from.
So I'm gonna talk something else here about, I guess, its feeling. Is Hacknet has a very dystopian cyberpunk sort of feel to its narrative, to the core of that narrative. Was there anything that served to inspire the story itself or the tone of the game in a literary sense?
There were a couple of things that inspired certain parts of it. More the beginning. So I wrote the opening text like really early on. Like I thought about roughly what I wanted the story to be, but I didn't have an ending to it when I wrote at the start. And I wrote it to be like, oh, this is like, and I was inspired by some stuff that I don't really want to get into. And so I wrote that start bit, and I just wrote like revision after revision of that like opening text until I found something that I was kind of a bit more happy with. And I knew the general like sort of steps I wanted to take. Like I wanted there to be like this overarching story of like Bit, and talking about like his dead man switch that is like the sort of heart of the game story. And I knew that the finale was going to be like dealing with a resolution to that. And like this is like just the bones of the story that I knew that I wanted to fit in there. And I knew there was going to have to be like a group in the middle. And I eventually split it up to like 2 and then eventually 3 groups. Because I wanted it to feel like a bit more like team based in the middle. And I don't think I actually got that team stuff right until Labyrinths. I think Labyrinths feels like a lot more because that's how I wanted it to feel, and I couldn't work out how to do that. And then after I basically like finished the game, I realized I should have done it with like an IRC thing, and there was like other people talking, and I actually thought of a really great answer to that to do with the /EL, like that message board, and having like more messages like appearing and having it be much more active, and you'd have to sort of keep track of things. Like I thought of an answer to that, but I just didn't have time to write it into the main game. So I found the solutions way too late in development. But it's cool to know that the solutions exist now.
Yeah, it's possibly something to look forward to.
Yeah, well, I think I really like in Labyrinths. I think it's just like one of my favorite things in Hacknet is how is the answer to that particular design problem, like how to build this sort of team and how the moving pieces of it work underneath. I really liked how that worked. I don't think it was fully realized. I think even though I like what Labyrinths did, it could have done a lot more. And I did build a bunch of the tools for that afterwards to theoretically make it possible for extensions developers to do it. But I'm still yet to see exactly what I was like hoping to achieve with that. So if I ever, when I go back to working on Hacknet stuff, I'd like to look into that more.
Yeah.
As for, yeah, sorry, go on.
No, I have to admit, like, definitely hit it spot on for like the end of Labyrinth. That made my stomach sink.
No, thank you. Yeah, as for like why the story feels the way it does and the inspirations for it, I think a lot of that comes from the ending of the two respective stories, and the ending was something that I wrote much later into development than the start. At the start, it was always going to be a much smaller, much more personal thing. So there's a couple of like rules I was trying to follow. I was trying to keep the targets and stuff like small enough. Like the finality to Labyrinths is obviously like a much bigger job, and it's much more like, you know, spectacular and flashy. So I won't spoil any of that. But there was like a lot of people were like, oh, you should hack into a bank, or you should hack into the Pentagon. And I was like, I don't want to do those big typical things. I want the targets to be like sort of smaller, but in like a less.
Because I mean, those generally avoid manhunts.
Yeah, and I like it's partly that, but it's also that I think it lends this sort of seriousness to like the security in the world. Like, just don't mess with banks. Like, that's not just like a thing you can casually just like jump into.
Because
like
the hospital is, I
bank.
think, one of the harder, more complex things, and that does take a while.
Yeah, and that's meant to seem like you're really just like, I really wanted to design that to be like you're like just going through this mess of stuff, and like just because there are so many people involved in the hospital, there's just data lying everywhere, and like there's going to be a password or something somewhere because you don't want to get in, because getting in through the front door is stupid hard. Like, yeah, so I think I wanted to be a little bit restrained with like the bigger, more like, you know, classic movie hacking targets, if that makes sense. Partly because I didn't feel like I had a good solution for how to show respect to how really airtight and secure some of these real world systems are. Because, you know, obviously if I put it in there, you know, I have to make the players be able to get into it. And I wanted to do that in a way that was like respectful to that sort of level of security. And if I couldn't think of a good way to really do it, to make it feel like, wow, this is a really secure system, and like you're like lucky you found a tiny little gap to squeeze in through. If I can't make it feel like that, then I'm not going to make it.
It'd be like doing the Hack Squad server all over again.
Yeah.
Which I had that.
Yeah?
I think you
Did
patched...
you get through it? How'd you do it? There are a couple of ways to do that.
The thing where you have the trace program already on you. Because there's the one thing where you can trace yourself, as I recall.
Yeah, the security tracer, which overrides it with like a long...
Yeah, and then you lock that
okay,
one
that's
up.
my favorite solution to it.
Yeah. Because there's another thing that lets you... Because there's the security trace that overrides it, and then there's something else that also locks up or slows down the trace. So you use those two things in tandem. And once you have those two going, it's fairly simple compared to some of the... Like, some of the Labyrinth ones are worse.
Yeah, well, I had to write in, like, exceptions to stop that trick from working on, like, the Labyrinth ones.
I mean, it's
that
just
was definitely a bug in the code, but I thought it was so good. I'm like, I'm never going to remove that. It's like, it's such a weird, obscure, like, solution to this problem. It's really clever. That's my favorite solution to it.
Yeah, I really like the fact that there is those weird things that you can do in the game.
Yeah.
Tracing yourself is awesome. I also really liked the alternate faction, like the one you get from hanging with Naix.
Yeah, /EL. Yeah.
Yeah, all of their puzzles are fucking great, and like it was worth running through the game like a second time just to get a look at everything.
Yeah, thank you. I really like that faction, and that was originally going to be like a flat alternate to CSEC. Like, it was going to be a lot bigger, and it wasn't going to loop back into the main path. It was going to be its own thing, but I kind of ran out of time to fully realize it. Yeah, which is a real shame, because I really liked... I developed that quite late on, and I was really like sort of stressed out. Like it was just this to-do item on my to-do list to be like, work out what I'm going to do with this path. Like for months and months of development, and like the deadline for Steam stuff was coming up, and I was just like, I actually have no idea how I'm going to do this. And then once I sat down to actually write it, like it turned out that the answers just were in my head the whole time, and like I almost didn't even have to try with them, just because I've been thinking about it for so long. And my brain hadn't told me that it had come up with a solution for it yet, that apparently it had, because it was just sitting there for me. And I was like so happy after that one day where I'd worked out what that was going to be. But that was very close to not existing.
I'm glad it does, because they have like a whole bunch of unique puzzles in there compared to like the stuff you'd normally like. That's why I really liked it, because you go through that and you are so much better armed to deal with everything else. And it's actually sort of a shame that you can miss Nyx if you actually follow the whole shell trap thing.
Yeah.
So I actively was like, I'm just not going to shell trap anymore, because there's never really a reward in doing so, because you just sort of skip encounters from doing it. Because you technically get rewarded with more challenges if you're a sloppy hacker.
Yeah, I think that's like weirdly one of the big design problems with Hacknet, is that being like defensively really strong is just like kind of a gameplay punishment. I think that's another problem that I solved way too late, even for Labyrinth. I do have an answer to it, and the game design answer to that is to have more of an active world that sees this, and it will like react to these people not being able to get you with giving you like another path, right? Where like in theory the answer is that if you are perfect on your defense for like, let's say 3 encounters in a row, then that would open up like a new path for you to take.
Like if Nyx couldn't get you once, he might actually give you like a dummy job and try to get you again. If you just perfectly stopped him.
There's more like baiting, and like if you're playing like properly defensively, like once you're on like a defensive streak, like you've warded them off at the past couple of times, like you want to sort of keep up that record, because they're going to try harder. There'll be more like phishing attempts against you and stuff like that. Like I thought that would have been really cool, but like I actually initially wrote in this big like the Vendetta arc, which was there was so much code in the game to support this as well that I didn't get to use. But I had a big Vendetta arc, which was going to be like /EL versus Entropy, where like it would actually be like all of the members of each faction were like fighting against each other, and like someone would post on like one of the various boards like lists of other hackers that were on that faction, and you'd have to like break into their computers and like wreck up the place and steal their tools. And like the final mission in each chain would be like you have to hack into like the Entropy like main server or the other one server, and like mess with their contracts and like track down their users and just like dismantle the whole thing from inside out, which would have been, I think, really cool, but I couldn't get it done in time. There's a bunch of stuff like this. Like the CSEC server is built very specifically for it to be possible for, and this is a hint for extension developers, it's built so that it is possible for players to mess with the missions that it assigns and what they say, so that you can like break into CSEC and have the CSEC members like do stuff that they're not supposed to if you like take out the admins or whatever. And you could like, it was going to be this like other path about like you sort of like, because CSEC's so anonymous, it's all sorts of weakness where if someone like gets rid of the admins and takes over without the members knowing, they can be like sort of controlled. Anyway, there's a whole bunch of weird stuff that I really wanted to put in that I never got around to doing. But, yeah.
Fair enough. My fond memory is just getting like control of the Hotmail account basically, and just skimming through all the emails that way.
Oh yeah. Oh jeez, I forgot that I added that in.
Mm-hmm. That is the thing.
That's really good. Yeah.
That's how I got the clock thing. Wasn't even through the proper path.
Yeah,
I just took it over.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Very nice.
I followed the correct path after in my second playthrough, because I forgot how I got into the thing until way later. But
yeah.
I guess back on tangent. So Hacknet's, again, one of the more accurate program coding hacking games. Would you say that a portion of this is due to your own experience with programming and I guess with sort of cracking or tinkering around with things? And what kind of influence did realism play upon your development cycle?
Yeah, absolutely. I think that, kind of as I was saying before, the biggest influence it had was in the feeling of it. And I think when I was starting out, I wanted it to feel real. And I wanted it to, like, I wanted it both so that people that didn't know what they were doing, they felt like this was really what it was like. And people who did know what they were doing were like convinced by all of the, like, so I have some like stuff in place, which is like, this is its own operating system. It has different commands and things. And I wanted them to be convinced by that like narrative. And so for a lot of it, I found out that like the easiest way to make it feel real was just to make it actually real. So like a lot of the commands are exactly what they are, like not exactly, but you know, as close as possible to the real commands that you use to navigate computers on like Unix. So like a lot of the influence in like trying to achieve that feeling was like I could just skip this whole process by actually making just the commands the real ones. And that worked out so well, so I tried to do that wherever I could. So it was massive influence.
That also was part of, I think, what made that one where you get the interface taken from you that made that hit a lot more home.
Yeah, I hadn't planned that out until I realized to do it. And I was like, I did a challenge to myself because I hadn't meant to do it like this. I was like, oh, I wonder how much you can play with this with just the terminal. And then I realized after that, like, oh man, I should make this so you have to use just the terminal. And then I realized that like, if you just take the other interface elements away, it's kind of like terrifying. Like it's a lot harder, but you can do it. And just by like playing through it myself is like I just wanted to check. And I realized that like, oh, this could be a really good mission. And then like, I almost cut it, and I almost cut the other one from Labyrinth because, and I had a big meeting with my publishers about this, being like, look, I really think this might be like the make or break thing for Hacknet, and it'll break it if it's too obscure and no one can beat it. And because it's really hard to develop that and test it to make sure that people can actually do it, because like it's really hard, because if anyone in your test group, like they give it out to like 10 people and one person fails it, I can't have like a 10% of people just cannot ever beat that section.
Though, I mean, guides now.
Yeah, so I wasn't giving proper like credence to guides. I think it probably is around like, I wouldn't be surprised if like more than 10% of people actually go to a guide for that section. But I think that's fine. And I didn't realize this until later. I was like too obsessed with making the game like smooth, and I think that's another problem game devs have. But eventually I decided to just leave it in, you know, like who cares? And I sort of like took that hard line in that developed meeting with the publisher, just basically being like, yeah, if they can't beat it, then like too bad. This is a game for hackers. And like I think that attitude was a little bit immature, but it actually really helped the game.
So, also, here comes the coal train.
Yeah.
Good stuff. But yeah, so both, just back on track, both the core game and Labyrinths have this absolutely phenomenally good soundtrack. How did you manage to get all of that at your disposal?
So it was very expensive and time consuming. So a lot of the indie game stuff, like the prevailing theory is like you just hire someone to make your soundtrack for you. That's like a thing that you do. That I was like so deep in Hacknet world while I was developing this. So for a good like 2 years, like the only music I would listen to was I'd just find massive playlists of stuff that I thought was good, and I'd listen through all of it, and I'd make notes of things that I think would like fit the game. And this was just like a process that just took years of listening to lots of stuff. And I'd find things that I really liked, and I'd make like a big list of. And I was thinking I should really like find all these things and make a big Spotify list of like the Hacknet like mood board playlist, which I think would be really cool.
The
I might do
making
it
of
eventually.
Hacknet mood board.
Yeah, and it was like kind of like just all these songs. Yeah, I really want this game. I really want this. And then I tried to get licenses. Like so, I'd like did a rough mock out from that playlist that I made of being like, and this was like all songs from different artists. Some of them like really big artists. And I was like, okay, I want this song and this song and this song, and I want like this one here, and like I tried to get licenses for all of them. And I did actually get a license for the Carpenter Bird track that I really liked that was on that initial board. And I got licenses for a couple of others. And the ones that I couldn't get licenses for, which is like, unfortunately, a whole lot of them, like as in almost all of them. And this was like a really horrible time-consuming process to go through trying to get the licenses for these songs. So like, I really want to have Halcyon and On from Orbital, which is like the song that plays in the movie Hackers, like the Hack the Planet.
God damn it.
And I know, and I was like, oh, and the song, like I was listening to it in this playlist, and I was like, oh my god, this song is like would be really good, like right here. And then like I like read the name, and I was like, holy shit, like it was meant to be. And I tried so hard to get the license for that, I just couldn't. There's an amazing song called Colorus by
by She.
Yeah. So
Yep.
so that was originally in the in like the prototype that I tested. That was the panic track for it, and it was actually all synced to that. And I was in negotiations with Lane Volta, the artist, and we exchanged a bunch of emails, which is really awesome because I'm like and basically I couldn't get the license to that one because that one in particular, that album, like unlike the rest of She's work, is licensed with a particular license where it has different rights for different countries, and it's like licensed different in different places, and it was just this huge mess, and they were just like, yeah, it's impossible, like can't do it.
That's actually sort of familiar because I had to recently go through something similar for a project of mine where we had to go and I've been hunting down a few music licenses, and some of them were pretty easy to get, but one of them in particular, I was warned if I wanted to license this one album, it was going to be issues.
Yeah.
I was like, oh.
Yeah. So a lot of this is like really expensive and really difficult, but I contacted a friend of mine called Fabian who runs the Otherworld agency. I was like, do you have any artists that you know that would be able to make songs that feel this same mood? And he was like, yeah. So one of the songs that was in the base game, like that I put out on IndieDB before the Steam version, was this remix of Revolve by Cinematric, who was going by His Boy Elroy at the time. And I love that, and that was the opening song, and I loved that song. And that's actually in the final Hacknet OST, but that remix used like samples that weren't like that we couldn't do. So Cinematric actually did like a royalty-free, like owned completely by them version that eventually got used in Hacknet and had like a bunch of other tracks on like the. I think just actually one other track that was a remix of two of his other like tracks that never got released. But I really like his music, so it's really exciting to be like, oh, here's some things that I made in the same era that I never released. And I was like, oh my god, I get to listen to this stuff by like an artist that I really like. So that was really awesome. But basically, the process was, I listened to just like thousands and thousands and thousands of tracks and playlists of just things just to find inspiration for like what sort of music would fit this. And I'd either try and license exactly that song if it fit perfectly, and if it didn't, or if it didn't, or I couldn't get the license, I talked to some friends to find artists that they think would be able to make something the same mood, and I'd show them a bunch of like the mood pieces, and they'd send me back like a prototype song, and we'd work together to flesh it out. So one of the people that was one of these artists was Remy from the Algorithm.
Lego, yeah. I was going to ask you about that actually, because his music's super prominent in Labyrinth.
Yeah, and in the base game. So I talked to Remy about this, and I actually got like prototype tracks So I sent all of this like inspiration stuff up to Fabian, and Fabian sent it all his artists, and the artists sent back like their vision of what they were going to do. And so I have like a whole bunch of these. I have like so many files and variants about like how Hacknet could have sounded, like in my files here. But I had one by Remy, and Remy's one was so empty and simple that I almost like wrote him out the first batch. But like I knew from that little bit that like there's something really good here. And I was like, so I commissioned Remy to do like another, to like expand it out with some instructions to be like, can you make it more like this, and you know, like take inspiration from this song. And, like we worked together for a little bit, and the song that I got back from that was like Malware Injection, and it was just like incredible. I'm like, yeah, this is like the hero track for Hacknet now.
Yeah.
That's like the CSEC theme, so it's yeah, and it was just amazing. And working and Remy just like totally got it, and like was really into the project, and just like really understood the feel, and is an amazing artist. And I really love like Remy's other work. So that when Labyrinth, one of Remy's songs that I was just like a really big fan of, that I like really liked from his album, called User Space. I was like, oh, just make something like User Space. Like, I was like I was talking to Remy about it, just being like, can I just license User Space, or like, can we do like a remix that makes like of User Space that's like this? So the version I got back was called User Space Like, and like yeah, we like discussed like, so we just took User Space and like remixed it as like a Hacknet specific version that like fit more of like the mood, and was like so that was like the main faction theme for Labyrinths. And like, so Remy just such a good artist and so understood the project, and it was just so awesome to work with him, because he like is a really amazing musician, and I like really like his work. So yeah, and I got to meet him when he came to Adelaide, and we hung out a bit there, and when he was on tour, and then yeah, we caught up again when I was in Germany, and it's just so cool getting to talk and work with artists that you really like. I really recommend the process of listening to just so much stuff and building like an OST for your game out of songs that already exist, and then like trying to license it as like an alternative to just getting one person to compose a bunch of stuff. Because like, I think a lot of the richness from the Hacknet soundtrack comes from the fact that there are like so many different artists and sounds in it, and that it has such like there was like a rich pool of stuff to pull that mood from. So everyone like had a good idea about like sort of what direction they were going for and what the song was going to sound like. And I think that really benefited the soundtrack. Like, a lot of work went into it.
There's also that sort of interesting parallel to like how users have their own sort of playlists made out of all those different themes.
Yeah. So it was kind of playing that. Like, I had a bunch of these songs that I listened a lot while I was developing the game, so they were so attached to it, like to me personally. Like, I listened to so much of She's music while I was developing the game, because I like discovered She. Anyone who hasn't listened to like She music,
the Atomic album. The Atomic album is really good.
Yeah, I think Colorist is my favorite. It's all so good.
I'm actually.
I got really into that. Yeah.
So you said Colorist is your favorite, but, and this is sort of like a big question. There is a very specific track that the first Hacknet culminates in. Roller Mobster.
Yes.
How did that end up coming up?
So I really love Carpenter Brute and Perturbator. So the opening song to Labyrinth is actually so is it like the artist Ogre, which is like someone that I really like as well, and I got them to. I was like, I want you to like basically like make like your interpretation of this Perturbator song that matches like these beats and like this mood, and that was like, yeah, that was like a really awesome process to be like one of my favorite artists to do their own like remix rendition of one of my other favorite artists. Like, I'm so powerful. This is great. It's just like I just like really love their work, and I really love listening to stuff, and like I wanted I kind of wanted like that like passion and the love of their music to like, I don't know, I really wanted to like to let that like just shine through it as much as possible, because like I was just so excited to be getting this cool music back. So like working with artists like that was cool, but Roller Mobster particularly was like by like orders of magnitude the most expensive and the most time consuming, like the most expensive in terms of money and in time, like song to get onto the OST. And it was basically like a couple of weeks out from release, where like I'd already like put the song in the game, like I had it all, and I was like finalizing with Warner Chappell Music France, and it was just horrible, and I was just so stressed out and so worried about it that I signed this contract to just get it in the game, because it needed to be done. That was like not ideal. It ended up being really expensive and really time consuming and stuff, but it did get done. Basically, like, so I never actually got to talk to Carbon Brew, which is a shame, because like one of my favorite artists in the world. But I did get to talk to their representation and stuff and like sort out a deal, and a lot of the artist protection stuff in place is really good for the artists, but made it really hard to get like a license and really hard to like work with the artist. So, you know, some wins and some losses, but it did get done. But that was just basically a process of just like hundreds of emails and like way too much money going into it. But I just had to have that song in the game, right? It's like too good.
Was that always like your plan for the final thing?
Yeah, like ever since I came up with like the design of what I wanted like the final climactic moment to be, it was like always to Roller Mobster in my head. Like I was designing it, I was like, when I was doing like listening to heaps and heaps of music, trying to like find like the ending song, I listened to Roller Mobster, and like listening to the song, I like imagined what the final mission could be like just by listening to that opening sequence like, you know, 100 times. So I'd be like sitting there and like a park or something, and I'd just be like skipping back to the opening and like listening to the first minute of the song, being like, yeah, I can design it like this, and just working all the beats in my head. And it was so tied to that song very specifically that if I couldn't get that license, I'd have to get someone to like an artist to basically just like make exactly the same song, but just different enough to not be copyrighted. And I think that's a kind of crappy process. Like I'd much rather like pay the original artist for their work and their inspired stuff. Like, and when there's other music that's like inspired by the artists in the game, I wanted the artist that I got to make it to put a lot of their own personality into that track. So I didn't have time to do that whole process, and it was so tied to Roller Mobs that I just had to have it. So just paid a lot for it, and yeah, it's totally worth it. No regrets. It was amazing, and I'm so happy it's on the soundtrack.
So, what was the hardest challenge when making the game?
I think the hardest thing in it was probably that there wasn't that much like it out there, so that when I ran into design problems, I couldn't just look to other games to see how they solved the problem and like work out from there. A lot of the solutions I was working on from just nothing. So there was a lot of processes of just making stuff and throwing it out because it sucked, or it wasn't fun, or it wasn't good, and that like slowed down the design of the game and like the making of it like a lot. It was just hard to come up with answers to a lot of these design problems. And like I was saying before, like some problems that I really wanted to solve, like making it more like team focused and the world feel more alive, I like didn't solve, and like I only got solutions in Labyrinths, and like some of them I still haven't solved now, and like the solutions to them are just hard and they're taking a long time. And like if you were to make like a newer version of like a hacking game now that was like took inspiration from Hacknet, there'd be like a lot of the solutions to those hard design problems just like sitting there in front of you because, you know, I solved them. And not that no one else could, it's just that, you know, usually when you're designing games, you can look to other games that have like run into these problems before, see the different answers and work out where you want to be, and like how you want to think about the problem. But a lot of that was just nothing to work from. So I had to just do a lot of like trial and error, and a lot of stuff got thrown away. And that was probably the hardest, just trying to like work out the answers to some of these problems where I was like, this just isn't fun, or this just isn't good, or how do I make someone feel like this? And I just didn't know.
That actually ties in fairly well, because I was going to ask you, like, was there anything that didn't make it into the game that you really wanted to be there?
Yeah, I mean, loads of stuff. Like, loads of stuff. Basically everything from stuff that I'd like sort of wanted to do in the base game, except for like some of the bigger beats, like in the ending and stuff. Lots of stuff with like the different factions and the world being like more alive that I really want to add in. I think there was a lot of really cool stuff that I wanted to do with like the programs and like hacking mechanics that the game was too finished when I came up with answers that I liked to that I couldn't really put them in. And I tried to squeeze some of that into like labyrinths, and I don't think I succeeded that much. Like I think it's better, but it's not there yet.
FTP sprint.
Yeah,
That was the solution.
I think a lot of those programs, I'm like, this just sucks. Like I was playing the base game again. Like I cannot believe I'm making people do this stupid fucking FTP program. So like the very first thing I added in was just like just a better one in Labyrinth. just get rid of that old crap, right? Like I was actually gonna patch FTP Sprint to be better, like in the official game. Just like it just runs twice as fast now, and it's the same program. And like I'll just patch it on Steam, so it's like as if it's always been that way. And like, a much better answer is just like I'll just give them something that's just new and better, like straight away in Labyrinth, because like I hate this stupid program. That was like the first program I ever wrote for the game, and I'm like, this thing sucks. So I just got rid of it. Yeah, so like I went to do overhauls for like a whole bunch of those things.
Oh, also though, as far as creative programs, I really enjoyed Mem Sequence. The one that actually the one that like you have to manually shut it down, because it does its job really quickly, but you have to manually shut it down or just waste time.
Yeah, so a bunch of these programs I had stuff where I wanted to give them more personality. They weren't just like you run it and it unlocks the thing. Like they've got their own little tricks to them, like that. Like you're meant to like the trick to that one is like obviously you're supposed to like run it, then like PS and then kill it as soon as it starts job. So I really liked that as like a little design piece. Like it's like a personality bit to that program. But I want to have other ones that like interacted together. Like one would take twice as long if it was running while an SSH track was going or something like that.
I mean, you have security trace and the thing that slows down security traces.
Yeah. I think the other one's like better. I think like trace kill was like, I don't know. I think it always should have worked. Like oh my god, I've forgotten what it's called. The Labyrinth trace kill. Yeah. So like the big problem, one of the big problems with the game is that like there's this weird thing where the trace fights against you, where like you're trying to add in all of this like flavor and all of these like text files and interesting bits about the computers that you break into, but the trace encourages you to like never read anything. So I only worked out the solution to that right at the end of Hacknet, which is like just have a big program that stops the trace once you're already in, so you can read all the files. But like I was like, oh man, that should really get given to you way earlier on in the game. So it's like, I'll just give it to them in Labyrinth.
I mean, the alternative is they get into the computer, they log out, and then you log in with the admin access.
Yeah, well, that's like, that was again like a little workaround that I had in there, because it's like, I went to remove it for like the game release, and I was like, this game sucks now. So I just left it in. And I was like, this kind of breaks the narrative a little bit, but I'm like, whatever. It's because I hadn't worked out this is one of those problems with like the design solutions where I didn't find the answer until it was too late. Like if I was going to make Hacknet again, a lot of the stuff would be much more clean. Like there's not going to be like, and I don't know if that would actually make it better, because I think one of the cooler things about Hacknet is that the technology is kind of weird and janky like that. Like you realize that you can just like disconnect and reconnect, and you're like, am I supposed to be able to do this? And like I think that like you're not understanding if it's meant to work that way or if you've broken things is like kind of plays into like the feeling of the game quite nicely. But so I don't know if my dodgy code helped, but I think if I was to code it again now, all the interactions would make a lot more sense and they'd be a lot more clean.
I personally did enjoy having like, because it sort of made sense. Like you hack in, you get the admin password, and you're like, I could set off the alarm, or I could just log out and then legitimately walk in and then delete all of the evidence of me being in here. I think that partly factors. Yeah,
that's how the code worked, and I had to write a workaround to make it remember that it was just you that was just in here with the break-in, right? Like, because like the reason that was initially the case is just because, like, to the computer's perspective, that's exactly what it looked like. So like it was kind of neat to leave that in for like people to understand, like, oh, this is how the code works, and this is why this workaround works, and like more advanced security later on would remember, and like that's why that happened. So yeah, I think it's interesting.
Yeah. So.
Yes. Go on. Sorry, I just go on.
Yeah, Hacknet has a fairly active modding community, a practice you also help to inspire with things like there was the recent community contest with making mods. Do you have any other things like this planned out?
Not at the moment, mostly because I'm trying to step back from Hacknet a little bit. It's been my entire life, and like I was saying before with the music, it's not just like it was just like a job where I'd like go to it and then work on Hacknet for a bit and then I'd go do other things. Like every piece of music I listened to for like for years was like trying to find like tracks for Hacknet, and like every single like interaction that I had, I'd be with people and stuff. I'd be thinking like, oh, can I make this joke that someone's made here, and can I put it in a file like the game or something? It was my entire life. And then
the IRC
the
logs
game released. Yeah, and then the game released, and it was a very different kind of overwhelming. Like I was no longer in that developer phase where everything had to be about it, and I got back into that for Labyrinth a bit. But it was like now like I was getting so many emails, and everything was about this game, and I was doing like interviews and going to conventions and like doing this marketing stuff, and it was just very different. But it's all just been Hacknet for so long, and I love the game, but I know that I was burning out. So part of the big reason I put out the modding stuff, the extensions, is because I needed to take a step back from it. So right now I'm working on a different game, a completely new game, an extremely not Hacknet game. And because I'm like trying to step away from Hacknet a little bit, I am not planning any more like community modding events yet, but I would really like to eventually. I'm just not sure how to do it. I think if I was going to do that, I'd want to do it when I feel like I'm ready to come back to Hacknet, and I'd add in like a couple of extra little programs or something just for extensions, and I could do like a little competition for people to make stuff, like, so they can feature those, and I'll see what they like. And I think that would be a fun thing to do, but I can't do it yet. Like I was doing that for ages, and I did like a bunch of patches and adding new things like for a long time, both before and after extensions released. And yeah, at the moment I just need to work on other things. I need to like distance myself from that game a little bit.
How long did Labyrinth take compared to like the original game?
The original game took about 2.5 years, and Labyrinth took about 9 months, I think. Labyrinth was a bit weird. I was because I was doing like a lot of convention, like marketing stuff at Hacknet and like flying around and stuff during the development. Like a lot of the Labyrinth like stuff got done like within like a couple of months, really. But I actually delayed it for like 2 months, I think, because I really wanted to polish it up because it like needed to be better. And even right up before Labyrinth, and that's including all the marketing and stuff as well. Even up just before Labyrinth's release, I like had no faith in it. I was actually on the night before of like Labyrinth's launch, I'd like drafted this big letter to my publisher being like, I'm gonna pull it from release. Like I have no confidence in it, and like I don't want to release this thing. Because I thought I was worried it was terrible. Because making games is scary.
To be fair,
and I just had no idea if it was good or not. And like Hacknet was like my entire life, and I was worried that if I released something, I know it's good now. I was worried that if I released something I wasn't sure was good, it could ruin everything. And I was just really paranoid, and I was in a pretty weird place, like personally, and I was like, I was scared. But like I put it out, and like I actually never checked the reviews because I couldn't handle it, because I was like freaking out. I was under like a lot of pressure. And it's it would have been like a month later, because I was like, I knew the reviews were good, but I couldn't handle reading even one negative review. And this is like the messed up thing about like where I was at, was that like it didn't matter if like I knew consciously that like, you know, even like 99 people out of 100 really liked it. If that one person hated it, I knew I'd feel terrible. So I was like, I'm just not going to read the reviews. And that was such an unhealthy place to be, because that's like not how the internet works. And it's not like the standard you can realistically hold yourself to as a creator. It was a dumb place and like stressful to be in that situation. I was like, I didn't know what I was doing. Anyway, I found out that like a month later, someone's like, oh, it's amazing. The reviews on the Steam page are 100% positive. I'm like, what? I could have gone this whole time. So I knew people liked it, and that was really nice. But that was a stressful, weird time.
So, okay, let's get things off of stressful then. What is your favorite silly thing in Hacknet and in Labyrinths?
Favorite thing is... Oh, it's a tie between the pacemaker and the next hack sequence. And my favorite thing in Labyrinths, bar none, is the meta hack thing where you have to like go into your own computer and the terminal on your actual desktop and do it. I actually was like, this is like similar to like the base game thing, and I think it's too much. This is going to be like Bug City, and it's going to be like the most like awful thing for support. But the idea is too cool, and I've decided that I'm going to do it. And even if everyone in the world hates it, I really love the idea, so it's in there. And you know, it's too bad, publishers. You're going to have to deal with it.
It was a lot easier to deal with than Nyax, admittedly.
Yeah, I think so. I made it like a lot more handhold. I was going to make it a lot more vague and more difficult to work out how to solve that, but I was just too scared. Like, I think if I was less of a coward, that could have been like the new Nyax a bit more. But
at the same time, it made Cole a lot more useful.
Yeah, I'm really happy it's like in there. So I think those two sequences are probably my favorite things.
Okay, but silly things.
I really like the ending too. I was really happy with it.
Because silly things, for the first one, it is the totally not Neopet site in the dude's tank obsession.
Oh yeah. I got the same person that drew all of the Neopals, like, cause in canon they're the same artist. So I got the person that drew those to draw the Dracula tank as well. And I was like, I wrote the code in just for like to make the images show up for that, just for that one joke. And that was like a lot of code. And yeah, okay, thank you. I'm really glad that you found that.
Oh yeah, no, that was there was a lot of the neat, silly things, like, I mean, also popping into Cole's computer at the end, or also Kaguya's and trying to find out what the fucking hell their gender is.
Yeah. Is it just one person? That's the real question you should be asking.
I mean, I already got that Kaguya was just a moniker and their current moniker.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, that much. That's what I was like, I wonder who they actually are, because they were all... Because isn't one of the missions, like, snooping after someone who was aware of what their prior moniker was?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, silly stuff. Like, yeah, I was being too serious then. I'm trying to think, like, I think Dracula Tank's probably my favorite, like, little bit from, like, bit joke from Labyrinths. From the base game. Oh, it's got to be the like the root achievement. I put that in as like a whim, and I'm like, this is actually where next can reply to you, and there's like a certain set of keywords that reply to with like his little messages. Yeah, that's good. Yeah, it's got to be the root achievement.
Okay. Isn't that where you just curse him out whenever he like says something to you?
Yeah. Like whenever he, like, if he sends in an email, if you reply to the email with like any of like a certain list of curse words, he will reply with like "fuck you too, buddy," and yeah, that was my favorite thing. I think I was like, because I saw someone doing it in a playtesting session, and I like made a little note in my little like notebook to be like, you should like, if you reply to him with like any swear word in it, he should like swear back at you, and I like just added that in kind of like on a whim, and I think like once I implemented it, I realized how like right this was, like how this interaction should be something that I like bait people into doing more often and set it up like specific results there, because so many people like did that reply and so many people loved that they got a response that I was like, it's so right, you know what I mean? Like it feels like This is
Because
meant
it's
to be.
that more immersive thing of like you answered and it sort of dynamically responded back.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I was so casual about how I implemented it. It's like if I'd taken that interaction a little bit more seriously, I think that could have influenced the game like a lot more. I don't know. Something for future games will be like. I think it's like a weird sort of psychological design approach where you sort of have to like you set a trap for people. Like they're going to feel like they're doing something that the developers don't expect, but you've got to set it up in such a way that you want them to think that, right? Like you're baiting them into thinking that the developer won't expect them to do this because you have to have the reply there already, right? So I don't know. I think there's like some interesting psychological game design you can do there that like gives people that good experience more often. A lot of interesting stuff there.
So, final thing here about Hacknet is, do you have a favorite or notable memory of just watching someone play your game?
Yeah, so there's a friend of mine, Chris Johnson, actually, the developer Expand, played through the whole game and recorded his playthrough on YouTube for me to watch before the game came out. And this was like before the music was in, so it still had a bunch of placeholder music and stuff. So this was still when everything was just coming together right at the end, and a lot of the polish wasn't in there. But seeing a lot of those moments, I would have watched that whole playthrough, and the whole playthrough took like, there was a total of like 6 hours of footage or something. There was a lot, and I spent weeks just poring over every second of that to see where his cursor was, what he was looking at, what he was reading, just tweaking it up like step by step. And that was like the most helpful thing. I think the game got like literally twice as good after just fixing the pacing and the flow of it. Like small little changes that direct the player a little bit better in some situations and a little bit worse in that like pull your attention a little bit more strongly to this. Like this musical hit will hit like at the exact right emotional time instead of the right like narrative time. Like having like just tweaking up the game so that everything fit correctly into place was, I think, like so pivotal to the experience being good. That yeah, it would definitely be something in that, but it's difficult because so much changed after that playthrough. Like so many little things got improved that it might start to be relevant to the base game. I think I'm trying to think. I'm not sure. Do you have one? Do you have a memorable moment from your first playthrough?
I mean, there was a few from my first playthrough. There was fucking that goddamn guy who you get like the coded fucking message from his computer, and it turns out that like it's all just dummy data if you finally decode it.
Yeah.
Cries.
Yeah.
Well, you know, clearly I know how to do my job, unlike everyone else here, and you dumbasses. And I was just like, Yeah. Also,
just putting trash talk in there is very thematically.
Also,
my,
though,
like flavor of that. Yeah.
The dude talking about double bagging with like the protecting files, and then him talking about like how come the dude sending a complaint to a condom company about that same issue of double bagging, and then being like, look, we're not responsible and I wish the best to you and your 12 future children or whatever, and me just being like, wow, shots fired. Because there's moments with dramatic impact and they're there, but so much of like the comedic timing and the mystery was really cool to me, like all of like the /EO stuff, that whole thing.
Thank you.
Labyrinth was really good for sort of the Kaguya thing, and like I sort of wanted to learn a bit more about not just Cole, but also the other guy, whose name eludes me.
Default.
Yeah, I was curious about him because he was like a bit more to the point and direct, which Like the whole thing for why the finale kicks off like it is he's just like, yeah, sure, I'm on it, while everyone's having a chat. It's like, oh, I'm done, and like it was like question mark done. Oh
Yeah.
oh oh like no.
Yeah, there was originally a bit more about in there, in like a side mission that unfortunately got cut. Yeah, that's definitely something that's like a little bit unrealized. I think a little bit of the lead up to the finale in Labyrinth is actually probably the weakest narrative thing in the whole Hacknet game. Like, it doesn't properly build up to it in like a right ramp. It kind of spikes a bit too suddenly, and it loses like a lot of the drama that the original game's ending like builds up over a long time. So that's probably my biggest complaint with like the expansion or the series. I think that narrative line doesn't curve correctly. But
I mean,
still,
at the same
it was
point,
okay.
that if it led up to it and built up intensity a bit more, I don't think just the sudden mood whiplash would have hit as harshly. Because like the thing you do before it is like a patiency. It's a more elaborate puzzle, and then suddenly you're just hit with this more high tense pressure thing, and the fundamental reason for why it happens is there. Like, after I ended up finishing the game and going through it like another time, because admittedly, whilst I did my best to stop things, I did.
Oh, you didn't save the plane? Oh, terrible. Think of all that blood on your hands. Oh, disaster.
So me figuring out that I couldn't do it in time, I just crashed the other one.
Yeah. Like, if you're going down, you go all in. I can respect that.
But yeah, the second time I actually did manage to, and I mean the first time was just heartbreaking actually. But super heartbreaking. I honestly, actually though, the optional mission that comes afterwards on the board, because I noticed that because you can go and remove the bounty and like on coal, which I think only happens if you successfully stop it. Yeah, that was awesome. That was a wonderful, neat detail. I wish there had been something like that for default. Like, Kaguya struck me as someone who like covered their trail enough, but honestly, when things succeed, I don't think you get the coal mission, correct? Because Kaguya doesn't.
Yeah. And there definitely should have been like a default version of that for him.
Because it would have made sense, because he's more of a brute forcey person and would have left fingerprints. And I mean,
the in-game reason for that is that Kaguya was doing his like cover tracking for default as well. But I think narratively, if I was going to shuffle it around a bit, it definitely should have gone. Like, there should have been more info about default sitting around, and
that would have been a way to do it.
Like this,
and it also would have made slight sense for Kaguya just to throw default under the. Well, actually, it depends, because Kaguya had someone really loyal to their cause.
I think Kaguya needed a bit of heavy hitting after that. Like, he needed access to people to do good work, and like default needed to be that person. So like, wouldn't have tossed them in the. It just would have been fun for getting that characterization for them. But overall, I think it was a nice bonus that if you do prevent things, you get that extra little mission, and it's that feel good. That was actually, I think, my most feel good moment actually for Labyrinth, was just that mission popping up and being like, this wasn't part of the main game. Yeah.
And also getting their background.
Yeah, it's really cool. I'm glad you like it.
Cole's background is adorable.
Yeah.
So yeah, but I guess that sums up all of the Hacknet questions, other than, are there any other content updates or features you may be considering implementing? There is one specifically in mind, which I believe at earlier iterations you'd been considering like a cooperative or competitive thing for Hacknet, which is part of where fork bombing originally had its roots in.
Yes. So the first version of the game, the game jam, was multiplayer only. So it was like a 1v1 hacking game. There was no story in it. There's some code in there for that, but I'd have to strip all out. It's just not good enough. I originally did really want to have a multiplayer thing in Hacknet, and that was the original plan to eventually patch it in. And I'm still thinking about how to do it. It's tricky for a couple of reasons. In fact, it's tricky for every reason. Like the implementation is hard, the design is really hard, the marketing and market positioning for it is really hard. To make that worth the like commercially worth the time to do it is
and there's
tricky
the
problem.
danger value of if someone successfully hacks someone. It's the only thing you're going to be able to do, like reset their computer, because you wouldn't want them to like disable that person's tools or anything.
Yeah,
that's
every part about that is a very difficult problem, and it's hard to find the right place for it. And basically, I told in the community when like extensions came out that I'm not doing it until after this game that I'm working on, and I'll think about it then. I'd really like to do another update for Hacknet, either if it's like its own thing, or a sequel, or like another just like a small free update, or I'm not sure yet. I'd like to do something else for it because there are a couple little bits and pieces I want to add into extension tools, like before the game goes out of support forever. But I'm not sure yet what it's going to be. I'd really love to do multiplayer. I have some cool ideas for it, but unfortunately, I think they're like new game sized.
cooperative.
So that might, yeah. Well, cooperative is going to be like the heart of it. But
Fuck
I
yes.
think that might be like a Hacknet 2 thing, if or when that happens.
Okay, because
but I'm not sure yet.
Because there's a few moments where you're technically doing stuff alongside someone, and it just struck me as like there was moments where it's like, man, it'd be badass to do this with a friend. And ironically, when I recorded the Hacknet Let's Play, which is no longer on the internet because I scrubbed that channel, sorry, but I was playing with a friend across. And we were both using the same instance of the game through shenanigans and a VPN.
Oh, wow.
So I also trolled him at one point by fork bombing ourselves.
Yeah.
Yeah, so... Because I was like, hey,
That's
no,
crazy.
I need to show you this really neat trick. But, like, there were those instances of we'd both be looking at a problem, and so he could see what I could see, and we could both sort of deliberate over like, hey, so what should we do now, etc. And while he puzzled over one thing, I could focus on another.
Yeah. I have some pretty cool ideas for how I'd do that. I think like co-op is like definitely the most interesting, like meaty part about what you could do with multiplayer and sort of thing. Everyone wants like a 1v1 mode or like a versus mode because they want to be the best hacker, but I think it's after having tested it a bunch, I think it's actually like kind of lame.
I don't know, you just
It'd be
add
neat to
like
have it in there,
trolling
so-
of like
Yeah.
dropping files in their little thing.
Yeah.
Because like I would totally be okay with dropping like silly, like hacking into the computer to drop silly zip files or like junk data in their computer. Like, what did you just spend like your free time dropping? Like, I just copied my hard drive over onto yours like several times to fill it with a cluster of crap.
Well, you definitely need to be able to do that because, like, if you find like a funny file on like some computer that will like mess them up, you should be able to go into their computer and mess things up, and then like I think that sort of interaction would be really good. I mean, basically, I don't want to promise anything. I'm not working on Hacknet multiplayer at the moment. I'd like to eventually, but finding out how to like make that and how to release it, like, because it'd be important to actually have like, you know, a rich community of online players. And if I just put an update out for free for Hacknet with multiplayer right now, that wouldn't happen. And so there are some complicated problems to solve first. So I'm trying to work out how to do it, and I'm not doing it yet, but I'd like to eventually. I have some ideas for it.
And honestly, it's something that I look forward to then. But on the note of a other project that you're working on, so care to give us any details on this project on the horizon?
I do not. It's secret. Sorry.
Damn it!
I'm trying to keep it like pretty close to the chest. I want to work out how I'm going to market it, because I think marketing is going to be an interesting challenge. So I'm probably going to need the little burst of like people not knowing what it was, so that the announcement of it is meaningful news. So I kind of have to make sure I don't tell people first.
Okay, so I don't even get to figure out thematically like what the genre would be.
Absolutely not. It's not going to be anything like Hacknet though.
Okay, so we know what it isn't.
Yes.
So I guess then we get to wind down to the final segments of this, which is, first of all, is there anything you want to share with the audience, or words that you may have for aspiring devs that you haven't already basically said in the intro?
Yeah, I want to say thanks to everyone that's been so supportive and nice about Hacknet over the course of its life. I feel incredibly lucky, and it's been really awesome to like see everything the community's made and like hear all the awesome feedback that I've gotten from it. And yeah, I feel very lucky, like very yeah. I feel like I want to live up to all of the nice stuff and the people have said and all of the brilliant opportunities they've given me. I think for aspiring devs, I'd say be very conscious about like what you're making. It's really easy to fall into a pattern where you're making something that nobody actually wants to play, or like if they want to play it, they don't care that much about it. It's really hard to make good games, and it's really easy to like fall into this pattern where you're making something because you like the process of making it, or you like the design answers you've come up with, and sort of lose sight of if someone came up to you and said, like, this game is available on Steam right now and it's like finished and it's what you're currently making, would you like actually go out and immediately buy it because you want to play it that badly? And like it's really easy to fall into a space where like you wouldn't buy the game that you're working on. And even if you think you're in the target audience for it, and that's difficult. And if you're in that position, then like, you know, don't be afraid to make some changes. And I'd say the actual changes you should probably make if you find yourself in that sort of spot is like strip stuff back, make your game less quirky, and just make the foundation like just more good. I think like it's easy to be like, let's say you're making Ninja Gaiden, right? By the way, you should make a Ninja Gaiden. Devs, just make Ninja Gaiden, just the exact same game. Just make it. It's good.
Like the Messenger?
Just okay, yeah. But, like, just make that game. If you're like, oh, I can't make it as good as it's my first game. I'm like, maybe like the tools are better than ever. You have that game to use as a reference. They didn't have that. Like,
I mean, also,
you.
there are people who've devoted 7 years to making their first game, and it's turned out actually pretty good.
Yeah, it's true. I mean, I'd say that's probably like a bad strategy. Like, aim for a game that takes like 2 years. Actually, aim for a game that takes 6 months and then 3 years.
Yeah.
Yeah, games are hard.
Yeah, no, I never got anything I actually started working on out. They just, I'd make a good chunk of it, and I'd be like, but I should work on something new. And then my desktop accumulated like 5 years worth of unfinished RPG Maker games.
Yeah. It's the classic.
Oh yeah. Lastly, are there any indie projects in the gaming community that you'd like to share with the audience?
Oh, indie projects. Hold on, I'm thinking. So I just got back from Bit Summit in Japan. And I saw a bunch of cool games there. I think my favorite one was called Fight Crab. It's by the developers of Ace of Seafood, where you play as a giant crab holding a knife and you have to kill another crab. That was totally awesome. I don't think the game itself is like, I don't know, it's gonna be hard for it to find a market, but I love. I'm trying to think of my favorite game.
It's based off the crab battle fucking meme, isn't it?
Yeah, it is, and it's like it's great. So I got to play that. I have an enormous that I got the developer to sign when I was at Tokyo Game Show. It's like my most prized possession.
An enormous what? You cut out there briefly.
Ace of Seafood.
Wow.
Ace of Seafood poster. It's real good. I'll post a picture or something. Alright, hold on. I'm thinking of like games I'm excited for. A friend of mine is making a game called XO1, which I think is really. It's like a sort of like an otherworldly exploration game where you're like this sort of like flying thing. So XO1 is really cool. What else we got? I'm just gonna be silent and think for a bit, and like.
Oh no,
My
yes,
best buddy, the editor, can cut it out.
Oh yes. They'll probably have a few awkward pauses and repetitions to cut out already, thanks to both of us.
Yeah. Thanks. All right, I'm thinking.
Okay, we've already plugged Unworthy, Velda's Story, and Salt and Sanctuary over the course of this. Technically.
Yep. If you haven't played Holy Knight yet, that is easily my favorite game of last year, and there were some absolute bangers last year, so definitely check that out. I think that game is incredible.
Blasphemous? If you followed that?
What?
Blasphemous, if you followed that?
No,
Also, editor, do not add my opinions here. Like, don't.
Oh, okay.
I'm just running through things. I mean, you mentioned Celeste and sort of talked about that, so...
Yeah, so I'm playing that at the moment.
We've talked Iconoclasts.
Yeah, I mean, I'm just waiting for, like, those E3 reveals. I think indie projects are being, like, a little bit, like, out of touch with them. I feel like when I was talking to Ari from Team Cherry, like, he knows all the indies, and he's like...
My wish list is a nightmare. It's like 287 games.
Yeah.
The Vagrant just finished and I think it's doing some last minute polish, but it's coming out. But if you're familiar with Vanillaware at all?
No, not really.
They did Odin Sphere, the Muramasa game, like
cool.
Dragon's Crown. If any of those ring a bell. Okay, that art style.
Yeah.
Vagrant Story basically has that down to a T, which got me
nice.
Interested in. It's like an indie game. So
yeah, very cool.
Yeah, I'll reference you to some stuff after this. If you're specifically into Metroidvanias and like platformy stuff, I definitely have some suggestions.
Yeah, awesome. Yeah, I'm getting a lot more into that lately. It's an amazing genre. Oh man, I need better like indies to recommend. I'm so like out at the moment. I'm like, I'll just buy stuff, but all the stuff that I'm buying and really liking is all just like the stuff that's already popular. I'm like, I feel so basic right now. And I'm thinking, I'm sure I've got some obscure ideas that I really want to recommend. I just haven't played stuff like that in a while. Being like a bit out of touch.
Oh! I'm also gonna have a question for you after this interview is done.
Okay, all right, give me a sec. You know, yeah, I am just coming up with nothing. Oh, Dead Static Drive. Dead Static Drive looks super cool. A good friend of mine's making it.
Dead
looks
what
awesome.
drive?
You should do it. Dead Static Drive.
Dead
that's not out yet.
Static Drive.
Yeah, it's not out yet, but it looks really awesome. And the gameplay is like.
Wait a second. I think this guy followed me or messaged me or because I think so one of the people I know did Walk Along the Wall, which is like super tiny indie game, and then he followed the dude who's doing this, who then talked to me or followed me, and then anyways, yeah, it looked interesting, and I like cosmic horror.
Anyway, the developer of that is real talented and really cool and like really knows what's going on, and that game is going to be sweet. Oh dude, I also have another great recommendation. You should play Paradigm. It's like, I don't love point and click adventure games, but it's just very, very good, and it's like, it's funny, and
I heard about
like
that.
Really lovingly made, and you should play it. It's really good.
Where your face is basically a tumor, and there's like a dude that looks suspiciously like a sloth with Donald Trump's haircut.
Hell yeah, it's all great. You should play that game.
Duly noted.
That's all I got.
Okay, So, if that is the sum of what you have, then we are going to go to the necessary ending bits, which is, first of all, to those people currently viewing, thank you. And also to just you for honestly showing up on this episode, Matt. Thanks. Like,
Yeah, thanks for having me.
it meant a lot that you were willing to answer my questions and just have me pick your brain. And it was also really nice that when I like first found the super secret Discord, you were just really nice and approachable there.
Yeah, well, thanks for being around. I appreciate you as being a member of the community, and I think what you do here with Crit Hit's really cool.
So now for the designated plug, which is, first of all, you can buy Wishlist Hacknet on Steam. For news, there's @Oren on Twitter, and they also have a spiffy website that you can check out with links to all of the above. Editor, please save me. In this video's description. Anywhere else you'd care to send people?
No, mostly just my Twitter. Give me Twitter followers. I have like a real social media problem, and those likes are like very important. So you should do that.
Oh, I mean, your social media problem can't be as bad as mine. 62,
Yeah.
baby.
Ooh, it's pretty full on. I don't know. Like, so I actually did. I'm gonna get a quick last one in here. Sorry, editor. So Hacknet was like free on Humble for 48 hours, like a couple of weeks ago, and I was looking at like the business case for this when like they proposed it to me, and I was like, I don't know if I really want to do this. It doesn't even seem like that good of a business move. It seems like kind of chaos, and then I realized that like I'd probably get a bunch of likes on Twitter when I posted about it, and like that was what sold me on it. I think like that's not a great attitude to have. That it's definitely the one that I have. Like I was pretty convinced it'd be nice to be like, oh, you know, if a bunch of people that don't usually have the disposable income for games would be able to play it. Like that'd be really good.
And they
But, like,
might
what
buy
really
into
convinced me-
Labyrinths. And they might
Well,
buy
I
into
mean-
Labyrinths.
Honestly, the Labyrinth's conversion from it's like not that high. Like a lot of those people are picking it up because like they are the sort of people that don't have loads of disposable income to like spend on games, and like so the conversions aren't even like that high. Like it stops it from being like business suicide, because you are taking the value of the game quite a bit. But so that like it helps it be like not terrible business move. Like the actual best thing about it is I think that like you get to give the game to people that want to play it but that don't have a lot of money to spend on this sort of thing, which is like a position I really like sympathize with. So I think that's the actual best thing about the situation. But what convinced me was the stupid Twitter likes, and I can't believe that I'm like this. It's like really confronting to like see yourself reflected so poorly. Anyway, but that's my real life, so follow me on Twitter. You know, get into the problem.
I think I actually already follow you on Twitter.
Oh, thank God.
You should follow me on Twitter, though. Cry.
Yeah, I will. Send me something. I'll follow you.
Oh, okay, cool. But yeah, if that sums up everything then, to the folks currently watching this, do like and comment below. I'd love to hear from you people. And if you enjoyed this and want to see more quality content, hit that subscribe button and the little bell so you get notifications, because otherwise you'll never just hear when we post new stuff, because I don't know what YouTube's doing. I actually don't know what YouTube's doing.
No one does. It's so mysterious.
Anyways, we'll catch you on the next episode, folks. So in the meantime, do take care.